Welcome everybody back to Friar Talk. Today we're going to do a little segment on the Padres bullpen. Opening day is what, 9 days away? Or not opening. Opening spring day is about 9 days away. So we're getting into the season here. Very, very exciting stuff. And there's a little bit of stuff going on with the Padres bullpen. We're going to talk about our projections for who's going to start the season on the MLB roster. Going to talk about the depth, both in the major leagues, outside the major leagues, in the minors, guys that could potentially come up and down throughout the season, stuff like that. Going to also, the biggest topic that we'll be talking about tonight, and we'll be starting the show off with, will be Drew Pomeranz and his potential return on opening day. And then we'll also just kind of get into, some of the ways that this Padres bullpen might be getting underrated. I personally think it's a really elite bullpen. When you look at around the MLB, especially in terms of your 7, 8, 9 guys. And especially in terms of your closer, because somehow Josh Hader has become a very underrated player. You see like top 10 closer rankings or top 10 bullpen rankings, and he sometimes won't even be on that list, like, which is crazy because for maybe the past like 4 years, he was regarded as the best guy out of the pen. And what Diaz had, what, like 1 year? 1 year is
One
that?
good
Right?
deal, bro.
Yeah, he's nice. I mean, he's really good. Don't get me wrong. And like there are other guys, but like I don't know, bro. I don't know how we just stopped talking about Josh Hader as like the best closer. So we're gonna talk a little bit about him, and then I think when we wrap it up, I think Chase is coming on in a couple minutes here, so we will make sure that we talk about Michael Walker as well, because I had a quick video yesterday, but we didn't really get into him. So we'll kind of like say our thoughts on him, and then I think we'll wrap it up with we did predictions for the NL West last stream. I think this stream we're gonna do the NL East and the NL Central. So that's kind of how our show's looking tonight. But let's get into Drew Pomeranz, because we talk about this guy a lot. We talk about him quite a bit. Oh, if Drew Pomeranz comes back, that could be such a big move with this bullpen. It could add a huge upgrade, right? And he never comes back. And apparently it was AC, I believe, right, Isaac? He was the guy that said that. So AC said that he should be ready, or is supposed to be ready on opening day, around opening day. Isaac, do we believe that at all? Like at this point, like do we think that Drew Pomeranz actually will be back?
If he's back, I mean, they already said if he's back, he's gonna have restrictions on him. So that's, to me, that's a red flag in general. But I don't know, man. Drew Pomeranz is a really weird case considering we don't know. It seems like whenever we get a good health update from him, like a few days later, there's there's a bad health update. A few days later, it's he got a setback, something like that. We know the immense impact he could make on our bullpen in terms of this guy could maybe give us the best 7, 8, 9, and not 7, 8, 9 in terms of the lineup. Obviously, I mean like 7th inning in terms of Pomeranz or Suarez, 8th inning Pomeranz or Suarez, 9th Josh Hader. That could be one of the best trios in all of baseball, mixing in Tim Hill, mixing in Adrian Morejon, Steven Wilson, all these other guys. This could be a very formidable bullpen, a top 5 bullpen. I think that all really hinges on how does health really impact Drew Pomeranz, because Drew Pomeranz makes a significant impact on the bullpen if he performs in the capability that we knew he once could. He was really good, man. I mean, for a while, he was our best reliever. He was one of our best pitchers. Shoot, a few years ago, he was our best starter, and he's what netted us a bunch of good prospects. So he's both started here in San Diego and he's relieved here in San Diego. But lately, it hasn't been very fun watching. Not even watching him. Hasn't been any good updates regarding Drew Pomeranz. And I think the discussion is, should the Padres try unloading him to really make sure they stay below that luxury tax that they really seem they want to stay under? From the moves they make, including Michael Wacha, it really seems like they want to stay under that luxury tax. Is trading Drew Pomeranz a possibility to be able to stay under that luxury tax? And maybe not only that, but acquire another player that maybe still helps you stay under that. So there's a lot of things that go into Drew Pomeranz's case on, will he be a Padre? Will he be ready for opening day? How much of an impact is he going to have out of the bullpen? This is one of the bigger question marks in terms of players alone when it comes to the Padres. But man, he was really such a talent in the times that we've seen him pitch in a Padres uniform lately. 2020, 2021, he was super good, man. So that's somebody that I really hope we can see this year in a Padres uniform. But I don't know. I've seen stuff. I don't know, man. I really like him, but I'm hoping that I'm hoping we can see him, but if not, that's 10 million off the books. That's going to go towards a player that will make a big difference. And it's not like the bullpen took a step back without him last year. They were still a really good bullpen. Um, so you know, we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, and also that's a good point too, because like when we're looking at this bullpen, and we're gonna talk about all the guys like that are potentially gonna make it, and what you're gonna find is there's gonna be notable bullpen pieces that are not gonna make the major league roster, which is a good thing. That's a good problem to have. You basically have too many guys, but that makes a Drew Pomeranz trade a lot more likely. So maybe it's something too where like they just want to see that he's healthy, and if he is, then he gets unloaded. I also Isaac, he has the like a $10 million cap, I believe. I think that's what you said, and
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's what it is.
Mhm.
I wouldn't be surprised if he's moved and the Padres eat like 5 mil or something like that to go move him. Like they might still pay part of his contract,
Yeah.
just because he hasn't been on the field. So it's really weird to see what's going to happen with him. But if he's back, obviously that's a huge plus. It's fantastic if you have Drew Pomeranz in that pen, and you have two really, really good lefties in Pomeranz and Hader. That's disgusting. To go with Suarez, that is so dirty. And then you still have Garcia. Like, oh wow, that is a ridiculous kind of two righties, two lefties to close out games to 7, 8, 9, 6, 7, 8, 9. Really, you're really strong there. So I like the idea of potentially hanging on to him if he's healthy, but it's just so hard to look at it and go, oh yeah, this guy's gonna be healthy. That's the problem. And that's why it makes sense for them to potentially move him. But if he's back opening day and he is on this roster, that's going to be super clutch for the Padres. And I think it makes him a lot more dangerous. And especially like we saw last season, how important was the bullpen in those postseason games? It was crazy. That was the difference in a lot of them. That was the difference in that Padres Dodgers series, is that their bullpen was better. That's really what it came down to. So if you have really strong guys, and maybe he's healthy sometimes throughout the season, not other times, and he is healthy at the end of the season, that might even be worth it, like to hang on to them. So I don't know how to look out, but I do hope he is back and we finally get to talk about him on the field, not talk about him, oh, is he going to be returning, because we keep bringing that up. So we'll see. But that's kind of my overall thought with it. Now I brought up the Padres overall bullpen and kind of what they're projecting to start the season with. And right now, if I had to go through and see who they would have on the MLB roster, I would go with Josh Hader, Robert Suarez, Luis Garcia, Drew Pomeranz, if he's healthy, asterisks there, Tim Hill, Nabil Chrismat, and Adrian Morejon. That means that you don't have Steven Wilson. Let's see what else you don't have. You don't have Jay Groom, Ryan Weathers, Brett Honeywell, Reese Kinnear, Pedro Avila, Anderson Espinoza, Julio Teheran, potentially. Like, you have a lot of guys that are maybe going to make the roster, but that's what you'd be going out with. So Isaac, my question for you is, do you keep a Steven Wilson or a Nabil Chrismat? Because that's kind of like that bottom end part of the bullpen, like that final spot, unless one of those other guys that I mentioned does end up emerging. And also another question with that, is there a guy that you think could potentially emerge over those two guys?
Yeah, I'm just trying to look at the bullpen projections right now. Okay, you're on Fangraphs, right? Yeah, I think I'd rather have Steven Wilson over Nabil Chrismat. Fangraphs has both. But yeah, I do really like Steven Wilson over Nabil Chrismat. Crazy to say, because Nabil Chrismat had a really, really good 2021. And if needed, maybe he can give you some long relief innings, some starter type innings if you really need him to. But in terms of a relief role, I think Steven Wilson can improve on last year. I thought he looked very good last year. So in terms of who I'd rather have Steven Wilson. I think this bullpen, like I said earlier, can be one of the most formidable, one of the best bullpens in all of baseball, barring Drew Pomeranz's health and his performance. What if he doesn't perform to the expectations that we hold him to? Um, so a lot of it really does depend on Drew Pomeranz, but the rest, I think you can safely say this is going to be a good bullpen. Tim Hill is a I mean, maybe not fantastic, but he's a really damn good reliever from what we've seen. He's constantly coming in and held it down. Maybe not to start the season last year, but he's been pretty good otherwise. Steven Wilson showed up last year, did pretty well. Josh Hader is one of the best relievers in baseball. Robert Suarez showed to be one of the best relievers in baseball. If we have to go away from, because I would assume maybe not full time, but some of the time we know that we're in the rock a 6-man rotation, meaning Seth Lugo and Nick Martinez will both be a part of the rotation when it comes to, oh, we got 14 games in 14 days, type of thing. We're going to rock a 6-man the same way we did last year. But let's say that's not the case. Let's say we go back to a 5-man. Then you now include Seth Lugo or Nick Martinez into your bullpen, and it just becomes that much better. So I think in terms of the bullpen, our bullpen doesn't get talked about enough. It really only gets talked about because we have Josh Hader. But I think when you look at the signings in terms of, wow, Robert Suarez really was a value for how well he did last year. Nick Martinez really was a value for how well he did last year. These are going to look like very good signings down the road. I'm very excited to see how those go. But like I said, those are going to turn into, one of them will turn into a reliever, and it's just going to make the bullpen that much stronger. So I am very confident in most, or pretty much all of our bullpen options. And not to mention, I'm pretty sure you won't have to see Craig Stammen anymore. So that also helps your bullpen be really good.
Yeah, 100%. And Chase is just hopping in here. So Chase, basically what we're talking about, we talked a little bit about like Drew Pomeranz potentially returning, but right now we're talking about the bullpen projections. One, like who's projected to start there, and also like kind of performance-wise too, like who do you think is going to be good? But the question I just asked Isaac was if you would rather have Nabil Chrismat or Steven Wilson to round out like that final spot in the pen, or if there's another guy that's not really projected to make the Padres bullpen that you think could be like, I don't know, potentially make it like a Reese Kinnear or Brett Honeywell or someone like that. Anderson Espinoza as someone, but who would you rather have out of them? Or is there any guy that you think might kind of surprise in spring training?
I don't know if this is going to work out. Let's see. Just giving him a little bit of time. He's thinking.
Chase's Wi-Fi hasn't been too kind.
No.
All right, Chase is robot mode. We cannot understand him at all. Okay, yep, he's just completely gone off our screen now.
It's all right. He'll be back. He'll be back. We'll test it again.
He said it wasn't working too good earlier. That's why we were starting without him. But yeah, okay. You talked about it. No more Craig Stammen. I don't think so either. I feel like they brought him in on that kind of like swing contract where he could be a minor league deal. It could turn into a major league deal. I mean, come on. With how deep this pen is, I don't think that makes any sense to keep him over one of these guys. Maybe Jay Greer makes it. I think in terms of, Nabil versus Steven Wilson, I would rather have Nabil. And there was some comments up here. Justin asked, "Do you see Wacha or Lugo piggybacking or being a starter?" I think that's why I think Nabil makes more sense. He can come in and pitch 2-3 innings a lot more than Steven Wilson can. I know Steven Wilson does it sometimes, but if you look at his appearances compared to his innings, he pitched like 50 innings, or he pitched like 53 innings and had 50 appearances last year. He's more suited to be a 1-inning guy. And when the Padres are using a 6-man rotation, which it seems like they're at least going to do at the beginning portion of the year, I think it's better to have like that mid reliever guy that can come in for multiple innings. And I don't really think the Padres have anyone that can do that unless you have, Nick Martinez or Seth Lugo in that role instead of starting. So that's why I like that working out a little bit more. But like, think about it. Like Josh Hader, obviously he's closing. Suarez is in a setup role. Garcia, Pomeranz kind of in like setup roles. Wilson's usually a 5th or 6th inning guy. Tim Hill, same kind of deal, more like matchup dependent, right? So you don't really have anyone that can eat up a lot of innings kind of in that mop-up role. So that's why, Chris Matt's also out of options, so they can't keep sending him up and down anymore, which was, dude, that was huge when they were doing that the last couple of years because it worked out really good because they would kind of use the ebbs and flows of the season with how much pitching they had. So we'll have to see how that works out. But I think that's probably the biggest battle in the bullpen. In terms of roles, I kind of brought up the roles I think they're going to have. You think Suarez is locked into that setup man role? Do you think if Palm's healthy, he could be there? Garcia, anything like that, or what are you kind of thinking for like how their roles are actually going to look come the season?
There are, now that you mentioned the names, there are a lot of really good options for that setup role, even a closer role, because Luis Garcia, maybe sometimes didn't look good in that 8th inning role, but he looked pretty damn good when he closed last year. Um, I think in terms of setup role, it really depends on your situation. Let's say you're up 2, 3 runs, that could easily go to anyone. But if you're up a run, if you really need to hold on to that run, or let's say you are up two, but that next inning, the heart of the lineup is due up. I think Robert Suarez has done enough to earn that 8th inning spot, that setup role. Um, I mean, shoot, in the playoffs, he held it down, man. The dude held it down for pretty much. The only time he didn't hold it down was when Bryce took him deep. And unfortunately, that's a Hall of Famer, so who cares? um, I cared at the moment, but not anymore. So he's definitely done enough to earn that setup role. And like I said, it's not anything against Luis Garcia or Drew Pomeranz. It's all going to depend on the situation. If the upcoming part of the order is lefty dominant, well, that wouldn't make sense either because Robert Suarez does really well against lefties. But let's say he doesn't this year, right? Um, if the heart of if the next part of the lineup is lefty, sure, throw Drew Pomeranz in there. And that's what I really like about the bullpen outside of, I mean, look, Hader's your closer, whatever. I mean, that's set in stone. That's what I really like about this bullpen is that you can basically throw any of them in almost any role out of the bullpen and they should succeed. Um, they're pretty versatile. Obviously, Tim Hill is more of a mid-inning kind of guy, 6th, maybe 7th inning. Nabil Chrismount, same thing. Steven Wilson. I feel like Steven Wilson has the stuff to maybe garner 7th, 8th inning role, but he's not going to win it over those guys. So I do really like the versatility that this bullpen does bring, and I think it's something that last year maybe we were looking at it as I don't know how much of a strength this is for the Padres, the bullpen. I didn't think it was a weakness, but it wasn't as strong as it is right now because Robert Suarez was still a question mark. We knew Luis Garcia was going to be good, but he was still kind of can we really throw him into that closer role? So there were a few things that I thought, and then Taylor Rogers blew, but there were a few things that stacked up for the Padres to kind of be maybe not a mediocre bullpen, but maybe just a little above mediocre. And they ended up being fine. Taylor Rogers wasn't very good, but outside of him, I thought the bullpen was formidable, but it really started to become a strength down the road.
Yeah, no, that's true, and that's interesting, like, looking back also into, like, last year at the beginning of the season, because we talked about that a lot, that didn't really feel like a strength, it was like but that was also because there was no lefty depth.
Yeah,
It's
none.
just Rogers. It was, like, just him.
Yeah.
Because Morejon was still coming back, like, there was a lot of question marks. Now, like, what is it? You have Tim Hill, Morejon, potentially Palm, and Hader. So if Palm's healthy, you got 4 lefties, like, that are definitely making your roster out of the bullpen, so that's pretty strong. I guess also one other guy, I didn't even think about it, for bullpen projections that could eat up a couple innings would be Morejon as well. But
Mm.
probably not more than 2 times through the order, and also, I don't know if you've noticed this, dude, but a lot of times he will look just ridiculous in that first inning, and they bring him out for a second inning, and he's lost. He had that
Yeah.
happen a lot last year because when he got hit, when Morejon was getting hit, it was not like, oh, like, he had a couple of hits in this outing. He pitched 2 innings, had 2 hits, and walked the guy, but he didn't allow any runs. No, it was like he either went like 6 up, 6 down, or 3 up, 3 down,
Yeah.
or he didn't get out of that inning. Like he would get hit really, really bad. So I don't know. And a lot of times he would look great that first inning he came out, 3 up, 3 down, and then would like walk 2 guys and then allow like a 2-run double, and then they'd pull him and be like, dude,
Yeah.
that kept happening. So I'm really interested to see what his role looks like because he's been talked about being a starter. Now that's probably not going to be the case. But yeah, I don't know. Very interesting to see how that plays out. Let me check the chat a little bit, see some stuff. Talking about who's going to be left down the odd man out of the 40 man. I'm gonna have to look. I'm gonna have to look deeper into that, like because I don't know. I don't know off the top of my head like who might not make it.
No, I don't know
Seeing
either.
question about Hader if he's gonna be back next year. I mean, if he's as good as we think he is, and he plays like that, he could very easily price himself out. And
Yeah.
I think we both agree like you don't give him a Diaz type deal. What was it, 5 for 102? Edwin Diaz?
Yeah.
Not
Not
for
for a
this
guy.
team.
Yeah, not for this team. Not for a guy that throws. I mean, it would make sense for a team like the Brewers because you were heavily relying on Devin Williams and Josh Hader to kind of close out your games. But for us, we're trying to extend the other guys. We're trying to extend Juan Soto. We're trying to extend Manny Machado. We got Xander Bogaerts on the books now. We're gonna have Fernando's contract coming, fat part of his contract coming up soon, in a few years. So I don't know how much sense it. And shoot, maybe Jake Cronenworth is back. We need to sign starting pitchers. And you lost jack shit in that Josh Hader trade. Nelson Lamette's not with the Brewers anymore. Taylor Rogers is not with the Brewers anymore. The only person you lost was Robert Gasser. You basically, from what they Esteury Ruiz is not there anymore either. You basically, yes, you gave up all those players, but the only one they have is Robert Gasser. So I mean, to me, it doesn't matter. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's a priority to extend Josh Hader. I think he's a great player, but he might demand a lot of money, and I don't think we're best suited to give a closer money over the other guys that we want to give money to. So nothing against Josh Hader. I'm looking forward. I'm so excited to see him this year. But we'll see how that all plays out. I mean, if he's back, I'm not going to be mad.
Yeah, and speaking of Josh Hader, I was talking about this before we got on, and I was like, all right, dude, we have to talk about this. How has Josh Hader just randomly become one of the most underrated players in the league? We've seen him be an extremely dominant player for like 3 or 4 seasons. He has one bad month last year, and then he comes back, looks totally normal, looks as good as he's looked in the playoffs, before the playoffs, stuff like that. He's red hot to close out the year, and he's not even brought up in a lot of top 10 bullpen arm lists. That's absurd. So I brought up to you, I don't know if he would truly win this award, but like, could he be the comeback player of the year in the NL because of how he's just being like talked about so lightly? Like, he's not a lock to be like a top 3 or 5 bullpen guy, because that's what I feel like he is. I feel like a bounce back season is very clear, and I think he's going to be totally fine. And I'm going to take the 4-year sample size over the 1 month that he looked bad when he closed out the season completely fine. I don't know. That's my thought. How do you think about that? What do you think about that?
I will say his competition for comeback player of the year is tough on his own team. Whether the league wants to give the guy I'm talking about the award, I don't know. But outside of that, no, man. Josh Hader is a fantastic closer. I don't know where he got lost in those rankings, but I don't think there's more than a few, like 5 closers that are better than Josh Hader. Not even closers. I meant bullpen arms. Relievers that are better than Josh Hader. You can make the case for Edwin Diaz. You can make the case for Emmanuel Klaus. Shit. Who else? Maybe you can pull up a list and you can show it.
You could see, like, the Brewers fans might say, like, well,
Devin Williams.
Devin Williams, like he's taking his role almost, right? Like, you could see that, but like, I don't think they necessarily viewed him as a better player. Just like it made more sense to keep rocking with him, and also they're not really doing much. They seem like they're going to try to take that they're almost going to take a step back potentially this next year. So it's weird though, right? Like, it's weird how it's just like, Josh Hader, like, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably because I think the bias around him got worse because when that was all happening, the backlash against him was significant. So I feel like a lot of people kind of just looked over the success he had later in the season. Kind of like the same way I feel like a lot of people look at Adam Frazier's 2021 and says, "Oh, he had a good 2021," without realizing he was horrible with the Padres. He was terrible, and then he ends up being terrible wherever else he goes. But Josh Hader has been a really, really good player for a really, really long time. Velocity was still there. His backdoor slider is still there. Everything, all his stuff, it was mainly his control that he was having issues with. But as soon as they threw him back out there after a little break he had, he was lights out, man. I mean, everyone watched that Dodgers series where in Game 4 he struck out the side in 10 pitches, something like that, maybe a little more. He looked, man, that was the best I've ever seen Josh Hader. And I mean, keep in mind, I haven't watched him too much. He was a Brewer. but in a Padres uniform. That was his best performance. He's had plenty of good performances in a Padres uniform after that little stint that he had where he didn't look very good. And the reason he didn't look very good was his control. But control's never really been a major issue for Josh Hader. So we knew that was going to pan out. But there were a lot of things stacking up against him. The organization that he came up with traded him. Something happened in his family. There were so many things stacking up against him that I wouldn't say it should have been expected, but there needs to be some leniency in that aspect. And after he got through all that, after he took that time off, he became the Josh Hader that we know.
You know, I'm excited. I'm excited because I feel like we haven't really watched a super dominant closer on the Padres for quite some time. I feel like Heath Bell was up there for a couple years. Like he was really good. Obviously Hoffman. Now we didn't see a lot of Hoffman, but we did see the later days of Hoffman, which was we got to see a lot of that actually, which was pretty cool. So I don't know. I think having Josh Hader, I think it's super valuable. And then we're talking about the contract stuff a little bit. I think it makes it a lot more interesting for like Suarez, for instance, if he could end up taking that role. Or the Padres like, dude, we can't lose Josh Hader. He was way too good. That's what you want to have happen. Like you want Josh Hader to almost price himself off your team because that means
that's true.
Like ideally, Josh Hader's like, I mean, ideally he's in another uniform next year because he was so good this year. Also, Robert Suarez was so good, so they were like, "Yeah, you could take that role." Basically, what the Brewers just did. Like that's basically what you want to have happen.
I see what you're saying. I was actually going to say, as far as the closers go, Kirby Yates, one of my favorite closers. That dude was good, really good. Fernando Rodney.
He was good, but he wasn't like dominant.
No, he wasn't dominant. Was he an All-Star that year? Yeah, he was. He was good. No, not Josh Hader though. He's not. Yeah, he's not Josh Hader. Brad Hand. I see someone brought up Brad Hand. I see someone brought up Huston Street. You guys are bringing me back.
Fernando Rodney was what, like there for
he wasn't
like
here for
half
long.
a season?
Yeah, he wasn't here for long.
But I'm pretty sure he was like was it here where he had like the 0 ERA, right?
I don't know.
Like for like months.
Remember.
I want to say he had like a 0 ERA for months. And then I think he got traded that deadline. Like he came in 1 year deal, got traded, and then
that might have been the Chris Paddock trade, right?
I don't know, dude. But he got traded, and then he was just like not good. Like he completely fell off for that team. And it was like, word, that was a fantastic trade.
Yeah. I don't remember the trade.
Yeah, okay. Kyle says he did get traded for Paddock.
Yeah.
Dude, I forgot that one. I didn't remember that. I always forget that Paddock was traded for because it was like before, and it wasn't like a, oh my god, look at the Tatis trade, like where it's like such a joke. It's like more like this guy's okay. And he went up in the system too. He was still developed by you.
Yeah, exactly. He was the phenom for like a month.
Yeah.
The phenom thing didn't pan out, but yeah, what a time.
Craig Kimbrell. He was all right.
I didn't really like Kimbrell in a Padres uniform.
He was like pretty good, but it was just like they weren't good. That was the problem. They weren't good, and they had paid for him, and they kind of overpaid for him.
I do think that really clouds my memory of that. I mean, that Padres team ended up not being very good anyway, but that kind of does. That team definitely, like the performance of that team as a whole, definitely clouds any good performances that I might have seen out of that team, whether it was Upton. I do remember Kemp.
Dude, he was bad. He wasn't that bad, though.
No one talks about the fact that he was really not good. Like every time I bring up Matt Kemp, my dad or someone else says, he wasn't that bad. He was actually good. And I'm like, I really don't remember him being that good in a Padres uniform.
So he was only there he's only there for 1 year. Oh, I guess a year and a half. Yeah. Okay, let's see. Ready? This is overall numbers in San Diego. 760 OPS. That's 108 OPS plus. Was he good the first year and bad the second? First year he had a 774. No, I'm sorry. First year he had 755. He was like a little above average.
He's okay. That's the thing, right? But he gave
he had 100 RBIs.
To get him.
He had 100 ribbies, 23 bombs.
Yasmani Grandal ended up being good, so I think that kind of also clouds my Matt Kemp memories. I do remember. I think it was a cycle. I don't know if he hit for a cycle. I don't really remember.
No, he did. He did.
He did,
He was the
right?
first
And
guy.
yes, I do remember that. But I mean, he wasn't very good.
Nah, I mean, was it like he wasn't? Well, the thing is, we all watched the Padres play against prime Matt Kemp. That's also the other problem.
Yeah,
Like,
that too.
so that made it a lot worse when you look at it and you're like, well, yeah, he wasn't like he wasn't the Dodgers. He was obviously a little bit washed. So, but yeah, all right. So, okay, you didn't talk about the Waka deal. Cannot speak. What do you think about it?
I mean, there's there was a lot of people that were very divided. And I'm not one of those people. I'm not divided at all. I could understand if you look at the metrics and you say, okay, he was a lot luckier last year than the stats show. I don't really care about that. We didn't sign him to be the Michael Walker that got a 3.32 ERA and actually looked pretty damn good last year. We didn't sign him to be that. We signed him to be a number 4, a number 5 starter, and for additional depth. I don't think there's really a point of complaining about this signing because it's incentive based. It's for no more than 6 to 8 million per year. For a starting pitcher, did you guys see the amount of money some of these other pitchers were getting? Sean Manaea, Mike Clevenger, like a lot of these guys were getting paid. They were having fat paydays, and Michael Walker had a better year than quite a few of them. So I don't really think there should be really much divide. Yes, the advanced statistics don't show that, or show that maybe he was a lot luckier than we think. Dude, sometimes it just pays off to be lucky. He'll probably be lucky at Petco. It's a lot easier to pitch at Petco than almost anywhere in all of baseball. Last year it was one of the easiest places to pitch, and Petco was having a historic run of being one of the lowest scoring ballparks in the year of 2022. That could very well be the same this year. Who's to say that changes? So I really do think that Michael Walker was a good signing. It was a cheap signing. It was a need. There's so much that there's a good amount of positive that comes out of signing Michael Walker. I could see some negatives if you want to lean that way, but I don't want to lean that way.
It's also like just like you said, it's just not like a crazy deal. It's 4 years, 24 million. One of my friends who's an Angels fan, he hit me up. He's like, dude, I didn't see the Waka deal. That I don't know why. He goes, I don't know why he signed that. He goes, that makes no sense for him to sign that contract. Like that's so cheap. And he was just shocked that he signed that deal. He's like he's not like anything like crazy. He didn't think it was like anything crazy special or like anything like that. But he's like, dude, he's like just a back end starter where, like you said, it's like incentive based up to 8 mil a year. Manaea, for instance, got 7.5. And that's not incentive based. So we just saw Sean Manaea here. He was very bad. He was good for a little bit, but like I don't think that his role is going to be that demanding either. He's going to be what, a 5 or a 6? I think they're either going to start Martinez at the 4. I'm guessing maybe he's a 4 even. I don't know, but he's one of your 4, 5, 6 in a 6-man rotation. You're not going to ask him to be crazy. Last year he had a 3.3 ERA and a 1.1 WHIP. They were like his best numbers in a long time. Both of those. Most of his other WHIPs were like in the years probably were like 1.3 plus. So he's allowing a decent amount of guys on base. And he had like 4s and 5s in ERA. If he can be a 4 ERA guy, that's all you need, right? You're going to win a lot of those games that he starts in if he's a 4 ERA guy pitching 6 innings. That would be super clutch. And that would be definitely worth $8 million for the Padres. So I like the deal too. I don't think there's anything to be upset about it. Like, I don't know why would we be upset, right? Like, it's just like a cheap contract.
People just like to nitpick, which, I get it.
Who else could you have got? You could have got Cueto before.
That's the thing. Like, no one. That's the thing. Like, no one's available anymore. Why? I wouldn't want Cueto over Waka. I have more faith in Waka over Cueto, to be honest. Mike Clevenger signed for too much money and has this whole scandal against him. Sean Manaea, oh brother, that dude stunk. That dude was really bad. And then it comes out that his work ethic declined while he was here. Why would they want to bring him back? What did he show to warrant being back? And I like Sean Manaea. I do. I like him as a player, but his his last few months in San Diego they were not memorable because what happened in 2022 was we come in thinking, well, shoot, we got enough starters for a 6-man rotation in Yu Darvish, Blake Snell, Mackenzie Gore, Mike Clevenger, Sean Manaea. Who am I missing? Joe Musgrove. And then Nick Martinez. That's 7 guys that you could have thrown into the rotation, but 3 of them fall off. One of those 3 gets traded. Now you're back to Nick Martinez goes back to the bullpen. Now you're back to 3 guys. Almost the same way you were in 2021. So depth, man. Yeah, you're building the depth right now. You got, Cleveland Manaea sold the season. I really don't care give me a 4 ERA and don't blow what looked like a promising game for the Padres in the NLCS. I thought the Padres, after that first and second inning, I thought we're winning. We're winning. I was damn sure of it. Little did I know. I was fooled. So as long as Michael Walker can perform better than those guys in the big time moments that we expect him to be, and keep in mind, I really don't think this move shows or signals the finish of the product of this offseason. I don't think this is the finishing product. I do think AJ Preller, maybe a move is not made, but I think he's going to try another move. And if a move's not made in the offseason, I for sure think he's doing something at the deadline. So I don't think this is going to be the finishing product of the starting rotation. I think you have enough depth on offense to where if your rotation is maybe not lacking, but let's say you can use another pitcher, because it seemed like last year having a 4th starter that was reliable really would have been helpful for the Padres. So I think getting another starter could help. But we'll see how it all plays out, man. I mean, I really don't think this is the finished product of the Padres. So Michael Wacha on that deal, it's a bargain for me.
Yeah, I think so too. And you're bringing up like just overall how it looks. I agree, and I also don't think this is. I think this might be the finishing product for opening day, but I don't think it is for the rotation in terms of what the playoff rotation is going to look like, or what your post trade deadline rotation is going to look like, because I feel like that's one where we know they're going to try to trade for another start pitcher. Like they are going to do it. Probably a guy with like 1 or 2 years of control. And Corbin Burns definitely comes to mind. If you can somehow swing a deal for him.
You got that right.
You were easily the favorite in the NL, right?
Oh, yeah, easily. For sure. 100%.
In terms of your roster at full strength.
Yeah.
Think of the star power on that team. Jesus Christ, dude. Like, that would be ridiculous if they could do that. And that's what they're going to try to do. They're going to try to have a swing like that. So, I don't know. I think it's a good move. I think it's very, very low risk. Like, there's no reason. I don't think there's really a reason to get upset over, like, these super low risk moves. That's my thought. Like, it's not.
Yeah.
It's not like it's like, maybe if you didn't like, okay, because I've seen, like, some people don't like the Xander Bogaerts deal. I personally do, because I think they're going to keep spending. But some people don't really like it because the thought is, this might have cost us Soto. Dude, that's a fair take. That's a very fair take.
No, it is.
I think we're going to lose Soto or Manny because of that. Now, I don't know if it's an accurate take. I don't know if it's correct. But if you don't like it for that reason, I get the reasoning. I don't know what the reasoning is for this deal. Like, maybe they could have gone after Cueto. Like, okay, maybe I can maybe see that, I guess. Because he only got 8.5 mil. But he also has pitched like, he pitched over 150 last year, but if you look at like his previous, like, I think it's like 4 seasons, like he hasn't pitched too much, and he's 38. That's a little sus. So that's kind of where I'm at with that as well. But I think that's all I got on Walker. Anything else you want to add?
No, man, low risk. I'm excited to see what he's going to bring to the Padres.
Yeah, me too. So yeah, all right, let's wrap it up. We were doing some division predictions to close it up. I think it was the last episode or the one before, but we're gonna do NL Central and the NL East today. So NL Central, tell me if I'm wrong, but I think it's pretty clear who is going to end up winning this division. Pirates and Reds, awful teams. The Cubs, they did make some steps. They got, Dansby Swanson. They got Cody Bellinger, for instance. So they're
Eric Hosmer.
oh God. So they're making moves, but I think they're about a year away. The Brewers, I think they're going to take a step back. They seem like they're kind of not fully into being competitive right now. So maybe not this year. Maybe they're going to have like kind of a little 1-year gap period and then try to be good the year after. But the Cardinals, they have to be like the easy favorite, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll go with the Cardinals. Not only because I do think they're the best team, but they're also the team in that division that's best suited to make a move at the deadline with their farm and what they got developing over there. So, the Cardinals are going to be the easy favorite. I don't like the Cubs. I will say I don't like the Cubs. I think they're relying way too much on bounce backs from on particularly one bounce back of Cody Bellinger. And don't get me wrong, like I'm an advocate for Cody Bellinger. I do see a bounce back in his future, but maybe not with that organization. I don't think that organization's the one. Um, so I also think they think they're getting something good out of Eric Hosmer. April, you're probably going to look at them as, damn, this team's good. Like April, they're probably going to be good because Eric Hosmer is really good in April. Maybe the shift ban helps, but they're not getting anything positive out of Eric Hosmer. Dansby Swanson, good player. I am not a big fan of his bat. I know he can hit for some power. I know he had a 30 home run season, damn near hurt 30 home runs, I think. But I don't think it's a bad signing. I just don't think hitting is necessarily one of his strengths, or maybe not one of his strengths. But I don't think it's going to be reliable the whole season. I don't think it's going to be something where you can look at him and be like, wow, he's going to be a good hitter with the Cubs because he doesn't have as much protection as he did with the Braves. But Haas is a Cub, KFC. But yeah, the Cardinals are the easy favorite. The Brewers seems like they're going to be in unloading mode. I would bet on them being a hot trade deadline commodity come the trade deadline, whether it be for Corbin Burns, Brandon Woodruff. I don't really know if they're going to make their younger players available like Freddie Peralta, like Devin Williams. I highly doubt it, but I think Corbin Burns and Brandon Woodruff might be on the market come the trade deadline. And don't get me wrong, like the Brewers, if they still had a few more good hitters the way they used to, I would still think, all right, this Brewers team's still pretty damn good. Like I'll have them up there as one of the favorites. But right now, I don't see it. Yes, you still have a formidable top three: Corbin Burns, Brandon Woodruff, Freddie Peralta. I just don't think they're going to be a very good team because of the lineup. I think the starting pitching will be solid. I think they'll be in it throughout the first half, maybe a little over first half of the season, but I think it's all going to falter out. So yeah, definitely the Cardinals. Matt and I are probably on board with that in terms of who's going to win that division. And then I don't really know if I see a wild card contender coming out of that. I do think the Brewers are sneaky, but yeah, I don't know if there's a wild card contender out of that because I mean, we're going to talk about the East, but I know one of my wild card contenders will be either the Padres or the Dodgers. I think we'll lock up one of those spots.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. So this is the weakest division in the NL easily. Like, I don't think it's very close. And also for the Cardinals too, like if we're talking about who's going to win the division, dude, the Cardinals also they added William Contreras, and I think some people overrate Contreras a little bit, but like we're talking about a position in catcher where there is a lot of guys that are not good players starting throughout the league. So if you have a plus at that position, that's already a huge deal.
Yeah.
And you're already a good team. And maybe Tyler O'Neill bounces back. Chase and I were talking about that a few episodes ago. They're going to be that much better. So I feel like they're the easy choice. The Cubs are really, like Devin said over here, the Cubs are a strange team to predict. Dude, good luck, man. That's the most wild card team probably in the NL, right?
They're one of the
maybe the Marlins.
I don't know. I definitely do think the Cubs are one of the strangest teams to predict because there's just so much relying on a bounce back from Bellinger and a little bit of reliability from Eric Hosmer. There's the volatility of Dansby Swanson's contract. I think you're getting good years out of Ian Happ. I think you're getting good years out of I'm trying to remember Nico Horner. Like
they need Seiya Suzuki to have a
Seiya, yeah, Seiya might have a good season, you know, like I think there's upside to the lineup, but that's a lot of. I mean, I feel like most of the time upside doesn't really pan out in a lineup like that, and um, yeah, the Brewers are definitely regretting that for sure. And that's the thing with baseball, man. It's so weird. It's such a weird sport because at the time, you really thought that that was going to be worth the money because come on, back to back or the stretch run he had in the back end of I forgot what season it was, but into his MVP season it was fucking stupid. It was crazy. It was so good. Um, Now it's not looking like that, and there's a lot of things that factor into it, injuries, whatever it is. But yeah, that might be a contract that they regret. Back to the Cubs. Um, I completely agree. They are a very weird team to predict, and to be completely honest, if this guy's still on the team, the only starter I can think of is Kyle Hendricks.
They got Stroman too, and they added some.
Marcus Stroman. There we go. Yeah.
Yeah, they
That's
added.
what I was forgetting. Because
That should be
I don't know what starting pitchers they added. I haven't really kept up much with the Cubs outside of their lineup additions. But
Let's see. I don't know if it's. Wait, they didn't. No, Senga went to the Mets. I'm stupid. I don't know why I was thinking that. I thought maybe he was linked to the Cubs. I think that's what it was.
who is it? Senga?
Yeah, I think he was linked to the Cubs a little bit. Okay, their starting pitchers: Stroman, Talion, Justin Steele, Keegan Thompson. People like Keegan Thompson, right? I want to say people are a little behind him. Drew
I don't know.
Smiley. Yeah, it's not very good. The
Exactly.
rotation sucks.
Mhm.
You're basically relying on your lineup to be like to completely carry you when it
Yeah.
has question marks, which is not a good recipe for success, I would say.
Remember, the Padres thought their lineup would carry them in 2021 too.
Yeah,
Doesn't work. It doesn't work.
especially when you play at Petco. That's not the best idea there.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, all right. So what about the NL East? I think the NL East is probably the strongest of any of the NL divisions. Who do you think is going to win that one? Phillies are your deepest team last year, and I feel like they're widely projected to finish third in that division. The Braves, the Mets, we saw last season. It was really, really cool to kind of see their race at the end. And even though like the Mets, because the Mets didn't fall apart last year, but the Braves were just that good, and that's how they ended up stealing that division. But this year, Isaac, who do you think wins the division, and how many playoff teams do you think are in this division as well?
I think the Braves win that division. I am a fan of the Braves. I like everything about that Braves team. Michael Harris, Ronald Acuna Jr., Ozzy Albies, Matt Olson, Austin Riley. Sean Murphy now. There is so much good into that Braves team that maybe they don't get talked about enough because the Mets got Justin Verlander. They got Max Scherzer. They got they re-signed all their guys, but come on, let's be honest. They didn't really improve. I think the consensus outside of maybe what Mets fans think, I truly do not think the Mets improved that much. I thought their rotation was better last year with their top three being DeGrom. I know he was out for quite a bit. DeGrom, Scherzer, Bassett. That was crazy. But now their top three is Verlander, Scherzer, Senga, Quintana.
I would say Senga, yeah. That's
Senga?
their projection.
That's a big wild card, and Senga has injury concerns, control concerns. There's things that go into that. So I do think they downgraded in terms of their rotation. Whereas the Braves, I don't feel like they downgraded at any position. I think Vaughn Grissom, maybe he's not going to be as good as Dansby Swanson, but you give him enough at bats, I think he's going to be pretty damn good. I think he's going to be a solid player. So I don't really see any weaknesses in that Braves lineup. And shoot, history only shows that the Braves have kind of been kicking the Mets' ass in terms of winning the division, consistently being good. So I do think the Braves will win that division. Mets and Phillies are going to be wild card contenders. Man, I thought the Phillies were really suited well for a playoff run. I could see why they may have faltered in the regular season because they didn't have such a strong back end of their rotation, and they heavily relied on guys like Kyle Schwarber, Bryce Harper, Nick Castellanos, and those guys really, maybe except for Bryce Harper, they weren't hot all year. Kyle Schwarber was really good all year also. But that was kind of a volatile lineup for a while. So I could see maybe why they struggled in terms of why did they only have 86, like 87, 88 wins, something like that, because of that reason. And their bullpen was also not the best. I believe it was one of the lower 20s, kind of not lower 20s, but in the 20s ranked bullpen. So I could see why they didn't do very good to start the year.
Interesting though, they did bring in Kimbrel, but I want to say
Yeah,
he was bad last year though, right?
with the Dodgers, yeah, he wasn't very good.
Yeah.
But
And
yeah,
they're
man,
missing Bryce this year. And they bring in
that's a big
Turner.
thing. Yeah,
Obviously, the
that's
Turner addition is going to be really good right now, but missing Bryce that's one of the most impactful players that you could be missing. Also, side note, do you remember that I saw that it was like a top 50 players list and Bryce was like, bro, Bryce was behind Real Muto and he was like 25 or something.
Yeah,
Someone posted list, and for everyone listening, someone posted this list of like top players. He was like 26, maybe. Bryce Harper was ranked the 26th best player. He won the MVP 2 years ago, and last year he got hurt. And when he was playing, he was a freaking monster. That makes no sense. So I see that argument of like why the Phillies might not be as good, but I still think they're a playoff team. I see a lot of people not like predicting them to miss the playoffs. No, they're gonna still make it. So Bryce is out for a while. Bryce had he had Tommy John, right?
Bryce had Tommy John, yes.
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought. Yeah. So yeah, he'll be back. He'll be back like I think late season, mid to late season. But yeah, for the Mets and the Braves, I'm with you. I think the Braves are gonna win the division. Lineup is just stupid. Fried, dude, Spencer Strider. We've talked about him. He is ridiculous. And then they also have Kyle Wright. Kyle Wright was really good. And they just consistently win games. They also brought in the Angels closer, Iglesias.
He was really good for them last year, like stupid good.
Last couple of years, honestly.
I would bank on a bounce back from Ian Anderson. I mean, that is such a good team, man. And they don't get talked about enough because they're not as big names. They're not the fancy free agent like Kodai Senga. They're not the re-signing of Francisco Lindor, but that is a damn good rotation, man. Spencer Strider has some of the best strikeout stuff in all of baseball. Kyle Wright. Wins is not a real pitcher stat, but he did get a lot of wins last year. He's got to be doing something right. Ian Anderson, Soroka also. That is a very, if you don't watch baseball the way we do, you don't know those names, but those are names that are pretty damn good.
Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, the Braves, like you said, the Braves have just kind of owned the Mets for a while now. That's the other thing. Like they just kind of consistently are. Also, they brought in Sean Murphy. Damn, dude, they just sneakily add. Like they lost a guy. What did Swanson get contract wise? Like over 200 mil, right?
7 years. I don't know if it was over 200. Let me see. I'll check right now.
Swanson contract. He got 177 over 7, so almost $200 million. They lost there like that, and they might be better, right?
Yeah,
Because Grissom's good.
Yeah.
Michael Harris is probably going to take a step up. The biggest thing for the Braves, Ronald Acuna might turn back into the Ronald Acuna that we had seen through his first few years in the league. So that's the biggest thing that could happen for the Braves in terms of improving. Ozzie missed some time, I want to say, last year.
He did a lot.
Yeah, but dude, this division is stacked. This division is really stacked because you got 3 really good teams in the Braves, the Mets. Like the Mets are really good. It's just I don't know if they're as good as the Braves. And then the Phillies are maybe not the best regular season team, but come playoff time, they're super dangerous, and they will. I'm very confident they're going to make the playoffs, unless they have like mad starter injuries like the Padres did in 2021. Same thing with the Mets. That could happen. Then they're a little bit old, a little bit kind of like injury prone, I'd say.
Yeah.
But that's also every single team almost.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah, of course. I mean, realistically, us going over these playoff teams, you could probably see the same exact playoff teams as last year. Like realistically, I'm not knocking what the Cubs did, or shoot, even what the Giants did. But realistically, the playoff field is probably going to look the same. That being the not this exact order, but that being the 6 playoff teams: Dodgers, Braves, Cardinals, Mets, Padres, Phillies. Exactly what it was last year. But I mean, for everyone in the chat, for you, Matt, is there a team in the NL that you think, hey, maybe they might compete for a playoff spot? Because I feel like we've discussed all of them, and I can't really think of one.
I would say if there's anyone that's like, okay, at least a team. Okay, the teams that get brought up. There's a few teams that get brought up. The Cubs, the Marlins, the Giants, and the Diamondbacks. Those are the 4 teams that most often get brought up as like they might make it. They might sneak in. I don't think the Marlins are. I don't think the Cubs are. I don't think the Giants are. And I don't really think the Diamondbacks are. But of those teams, the biggest wild card is probably the Cubs. Maybe the best star players are probably the Marlins. And then the most kind of like up and coming team is probably the Diamondbacks. So like there's a way that they all could, but I just don't see them beating out think about it. One of the Braves, Mets, Padres, Dodgers, or two of those teams, or the Phillies. Like the Phillies were in the World Series last year. Like we have to, like you got to give some respect. Like they're still a good team, even though they're not going to have Bryce. They added Turner to replace him for a little bit. So like it's hard to see. I think the AL is a lot more wide open than the NL.
For sure. For sure. I do think the AL is a lot more wide open. We will talk about that eventually. But for us, the NL is the only thing that matters until we reach the World Series. So, with that being said, I mean, yeah, the NL is going to me, it's going to look very similar, barring injuries, barring, all that kind of silly stuff that goes on in baseball. For me personally, I do think Arizona is going to be one of those teams that we look at might be in the race towards the end. Maybe they won't make it, but I do think they make strides this year in terms of, hey, maybe there's a team to look out for in 2024, 2025, because realistically, that is a good team, and they could definitely be. I don't think they're going to compete with the Padres or the Dodgers, but shoot, maybe they can compete with the Cardinals. I don't know, but I do think they'll be there eventually.
Yeah. All right, guys. I think that's all we got for tonight. Look at these comments real quick before we take off. Ace, haven't seen you in a minute, man. He says Giants are so mid. I agree. The Giants are really, really mid. Got some comments about the Diamondbacks, thinking that they might make a jump. I think so as well. I think that's a possibility. We're in the super team era of baseball right now, dude. You agree with that? I agree with that.
In the NL for sure. I mean, these teams are stupid, man. These teams are crazy.
Also, Ace, we were just talking about that. I don't think he joined in time. Do you read this comment, Isaac? This is like literally exactly what you said. Like word for word, I think.
Yeah, word for word, bar for bar, stole my flow. I do think Petco's suited for anyone except Craig Stammen.
Austin Riley's a beast. CJ Abrams looks swole now, dude. We talked about that, dude. He's eventually gonna get some muscle on him. I still got faith in CJ.
We talked about him for a while. We said, dude, he's like 18, 19. He's not going to be the biggest guy in the locker room. He's never going to be that, but he's not going to be as big as he eventually will be. No, I still for sure got faith in CJ. I think he's going to pan out. I don't care though, because we got Juan Soto.
Last year, he wasn't too good on Washington.
No, he wasn't.
Ooh, he played about the same amount as he did in San Diego. So, but yeah, I mean, I hope he balls out. I hope he balls out. Yeah, Ace also says, "Bro, I always miss the streams because of the start time." Dude, we're playing. We're gonna change that. We're gonna get a more like, since baseball's starting back up again, we'll get back to like an easier routine than like randomly like, "Hey, are you guys ready?" Like in like a couple hours, because that's kind of what we're rocking with. And there's like nothing scheduled, so it's been a little bit chaotic. So apologies for that, but yeah, yeah. All right, guys. We'll talk to y'all soon. I don't know if we'll have a stream this week or next week. But next week, I think we'll probably have a set schedule moving forward in some capacity, just because it's a lot more easier that way also for us, just because instead of being like, oh, when should we do it? Kind of like randomly picking times. But It's exciting. Baseball starts next week. Spring training, guys are there, but games start next Friday, so not very long. And then we got the World Baseball Classic, which I'm super pumped for that. But in the football season, baseball season is basically here. Isaac and I both said we don't really care about the NBA season. I know people that are listening probably do, but like, sorry, I basically only watch football and baseball.
Yeah.
I used to watch basketball a lot, but
me too.
Yeah. All right, guys. Have a good night, and we'll talk to y'all soon.